is my Peugeot 106.
This is what powers it, and even though this engine is in a car, it's not exactly a car engine.
It's powered by this, a Suzuki Hayabusa, a 1300cc superbike. Producing 180 horsepower, it's capable of speeds over 200 mile an hour.
That might be the last time it ever runs.
And over the past few months, you've watched me turn this granny-mobile Peugeot 106 into something that will give most hot hatchers a run for their money. And in the previous episode, I finally got it running and driving, turning it into a sick little car. It's a Peugeot 106 that revs all the way to 13,000 RPM, has a sequential 6-speed gearbox, and literally weighs nothing.
But it's far from perfect. The engine sits way too low, the ride height is atrocious, the exhaust makes you deaf, and the gear shift is backwards. And in this video, all that's fixed. Okay, so the first job today is fix the clearance issues. As some of you have noticed, the engine does sit quite low in the car and it's already scraped a few times getting it on and off the drive. But unfortunately, it's as low as I could get it. I didn't want to have to cut a massive hole in the bonnet and have the engine poking out the top. But luckily for me, there is a solution. I've got a slimline oil pan, and once fitted, it will take a good few inches off the bottom of the engine, meaning I can get rid of that massive wheel arch gap.
So I'm going to start off by removing the front bumper, which is just held on by a few clips. That's because it'll make my life much easier removing the oil cooler, which I need to do to fit the new oil pan and new exhaust, but I'll get to that later on in the video. And while I'm removing the oil pan, I might as well do an oil change, since I've got to drain it out anyways. Then I need to remove an oil pressure restrictor, which I think is behind the oil filter. That's because the new oil pan doesn't allow for an oil cooler, so I won't be running one. But that means all the oil that would have gone to the cooler will then create excess oil pressure, and that needs to go somewhere. So if I remove this restrictor behind the oil filter, it will then create enough flow for the excess oil pressure to just return to the sump, and it should be sound. Then I've just got to undo all the bolts holding the sump on, and with a little tap, it comes off. Now I'm removing the oil cooler, which is held on by this bracket I made especially for it just a few weeks ago. And it was only a matter of time before these old rusty lines gave up. I've also got to put on a new oil pickup, which came with a kit. This is basically a big straw for the oil to be sucked up and sent to different parts of the engine. Now I'm just going around the whole area and cleaning up all the old gasket and gunk build-up so we get a good seal when the new gasket goes on. And to get a good seal, the new sump has to be tightened properly in a crisscross pattern. I've just got to block off the hole on the engine where the oil cooler pipe bolted to, otherwise I'll have oil leaking everywhere later on. And to do that, I've got inventive. I've used the original flange off the oil cooler pipe since it already had the O-ring on it, and I just welded up the centre. Now I can fill it with 4 litres of fresh oil and we're done.
So that's the new Sunline oil pan fitted. While the car's already jacked up, I can move on to getting the wheels off, getting the struts off, and getting the new 50mm lowering springs fitted to get rid of that massive wheel arch gap. So let's crack on.
Now, you've all probably seen hundreds of cars being lowered, so I'll power through it and make it quick. I just hope these 50mm lowering springs are enough, because that wheel arch gap is massive, and 50mm doesn't sound like that much. And unfortunately, to fit these new springs, I had to take the whole strut off with the hub still attached because it's welded on. Once they're off, I can buzz the top mount off, slide on the new spring and reassemble. Then once I've finished this side, I just had to do the same on the other side. But first, I couldn't resist checking out the ride height, which didn't quite go as planned.
That's one side done. Let's get it jacked down, see what it looks like. Hopefully it'll look all right when it's on the floor, fully. Shall I jack the other side down quick and see what it looks like before I do the other side?
How long will it take to do the other side?
Like half an hour.
Yeah, just do it.
Just wait.
It just seems like a fair.
And I was just too impatient. I had to see what the ride height looked like.
Probably just because this side's still up. Yes. I mean, it just looks like a standard car now, doesn't it? It doesn't really look lowered, but it's all right, isn't it? So, it's not all right. I bought new springs. These are 60mm, so they're 10mm lower than what's on. And if I'm not happy with how these sit, I'll just have to accept it, because you can't get any lower. And if you're wondering why I didn't just cut a bit off the 50mm springs, I tried that and it didn't work. Now I'm another £120 into springs. I could have got coilovers at this point, but here we are.
Are you opening them up? Well done.
Oh yeah. In case you want to see them, it's not just an empty box. Happy?
Yeah.
And so am I. Just wait until you see how these new springs look. And they're even red, so they're definitely better. Now I'm just repeating the whole process again, which is pretty easy when you've done it once or twice. Then I can move on to getting the new 60mm lowering springs compressed. That's so the strut will stick out just enough at the end to fit the top mount on and the nut to hold it all together. Once that's all built up, I can throw it back together and hope and pray it looks lowered this time.
Hopefully it actually looks lowered this time. That's not bad, you know.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that. That's the same as the back, look. Look. Exactly the same.
All the tools you've got and you're using your fingers to measure.
I'm happy with that, and that's the main thing. So, what's next? Exhaust. We're going to fix the exhaust, get it out the back. I've bought one off Facebook Marketplace, so all I've got to do is connect the bike manifold to this Sportex exhaust.
Which was only £140, and it's basically brand new, which I think's a steal considering how much work it's going to save me building a whole new exhaust.
It might not make it sound better, but it'll definitely be quieter, which will make a nicer driving experience.
So the plan is get rid of the side exit exhaust and make a proper one out the back. This should make a huge difference to how this car sounds. But first I've actually got to fabricate it to work. The exhaust I bought will come to just behind the engine, so I've just got to get the header pipes over to the exhaust and connect the two together. And to connect the two together, I'm using 45-degree bends and pie cuts. As you can see, once they're stacked on top of each other, they make a nice tight bend without losing any part diameter. Now, I'm not an exhaust fabricator or any fabricator for that matter, so go easy on me in the comments, but this should do the job for now. Then I'm just using a clamp to connect the exhaust. That's just so if I ever need to remove it, I can.
Sounds all right, doesn't it? But that's all you're getting for now. Of course, there's still one more thing I've got to fix, and that is the shifter. A lot of you guys brought to my attention, it does actually shift the wrong way, but I should be able to reroute the cable and make it so that pulling back is going up the gears and pushing forward is going down the gears. So let's get to it.
And changing the direction it shifts was fairly straightforward. I just had to reroute the cable, which I did by drilling a hole through the firewall and a hole through the exhaust tunnel. That's to make the cable sit high enough to connect onto the engine 180 degrees from where it was before. I've basically just spun the direction it connects onto the engine, which should then spin the direction it shifts. And after some drilling and tapping, I've utilised a fairing bolt from the bike as an adapter to connect the cable to the shifter.
Right, that was actually pretty easy to sort the gears. I should have done that from the start. Now the car's lowered, I've got the exhaust out the back and the gears shift the right way. Let's take it out, get some good sound clips, no music, no nothing. Let's go.
But then, after doing the first pull in the car, it overheated, and I couldn't figure out why. At first I thought it was because the radiator wasn't getting enough airflow, but it had never overheated before. Then I noticed the oil level, or more like non-existent oil level. Now these engines don't have a dipstick, only a sight glass on the side, which I checked was full after doing the oil change earlier. But all I could do now was hope there was some in it, even if I couldn't see it. And being stuck in the middle of the countryside at 8 PM on a Saturday ain't ideal, so we decided to get an Uber back, grab some oil and come back to save the day. And after topping it all with oil, the car still overheated. So all I can put it down to is that the radiator wasn't getting enough airflow mounted behind the bumper. So in a desperate attempt to get some long-awaited driving clips, I temporarily put the original radiator on from the bike, which is definitely bigger than what I was using. But, well, it looked like this.
Which, let's be honest, isn't ideal. This radiator looks horrible and I wish I never went to all the effort cutting the bumper to make it fit. So to fix it, I've been and got a new bumper and a new radiator. This will be the third radiator going on this car, so I'm hoping third time lucky. It's for a Suzuki SV1000, and the reason I bought this radiator is because it's flat and has a different inlet and outlet design to what I'm currently using, which should fit a lot better behind the bumper and keep that sleeper look that I'm after. So let's get to it.
So again, I'm going to start by removing what's left of the front bumper, which isn't much at this point.
And working on this car is never straightforward, so fitting this radiator is no different. The first problem being is this radiator has an inlet, an outlet, and a return line, which I think is to bleed the air out. But this radiator only has an inlet and an outlet. So to give it a return line like this radiator currently has, I've bought this piece, which I can hopefully drill a hole here and tap this piece in.
This will basically make the radiator the same setup as the standard one, so I've just got to carefully drill it out one size smaller than the tap I'm using. Then tap the hole, which is super easy into aluminium. Once that's done, I can just wrap the fitting in some PTFE tape to prevent leaks later on. And that's a job well done. Then this ugly old radiator can come off. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking having this coming out the front like some scrappy challenge build. But at least it comes off easy. It's literally only been on while I waited for this new radiator to ride. I think my original thought process with fitting this radiator is that the car had been overheating and I just wanted something that would work. And what better radiator to use than the one Suzuki designed for this engine all them years ago. And once I'd spent all the time making the brackets and connecting it up, I never expected that I'd have to cut so much of the bumper away. It kind of happened little by little, just trimming more and more off until there was nothing left. And by that time I committed to it, but even after wasting all my time, I'm still glad to be swapping it out. Then after mocking up the new radiator, I could instantly see
that's going to fit so much better. How much better does that look?
now I can cut off the old mounting brackets and sand them smooth with a flat disc, like it never even happened. And while I'm there, I'm just cleaning up the area to weld new brackets on for the new and improved radiator. And to make the brackets, or any shape out of metal, the best way I found is to make cardboard templates. It's so much quicker to get the shape you want, then you only have to cut the metal out once. And if you're wondering how I even got to this point, you can check out my other videos on this build where I literally started from a fully stocked Peugeot 106. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, please hit that subscribe button. And after drilling a couple of holes, I can bolt them onto the radiator and check the fit. Then I'm just using the old bumper to check the clearance because I don't want to have to do this again, and that massive gap I've cut away actually made things easier. Once I'm happy, it's time to weld them on. Then, after they're welded, they wouldn't look right without some paint, so I quickly chucked some primer and Nighthawk black paint on, which is a Honda colour I had left from a previous video. Then it's just a case of bolting a new radiator up. And it looks so much better. Now I can squeeze the old hoses on, which don't actually fit bad considering this radiator is for a completely different bike, even if I did have to cut one. And if you're wondering why I've not put a radiator fan on, it's because I've not ordered one yet. I wanted to make sure this radiator would work first. And luck must be on my side because the old coolant temp sensor threaded straight in too. The last hose is just to extend the coolant cap, which is great because I can mount it anywhere in the engine bay and it makes it a lot easier to fill. Then I've just mounted a bracket to the slam panel so I've got something to mount the coolant cap to. It almost looks OEM. And of course, not forgetting to fill the system. The only problem now is I need to cut up another bumper, but not to the same extremes as before. Just some light modification which involves removing a lot of the grille and some inner plastics of the bumper.
That looks mint. So now the radiator's sorted, let's take it out again, hopefully no breakdowns, and get some good driving clips. Let's go.
And then this is where it went wrong again.
I think the gear cable snapped. The end of the throttle cable's just come off, so that's great.
The throttle cable snapped, which left me stranded in the countryside again. Luckily prepared this time, I had tools with me, so I was able to pinch what's left of the cable to make it work just to get me home.
I broke down now 3 times in 3 days, every day I've tried to film it. It's just one thing after another with this.
And then straight away, it come off again.
I literally give up with this car. I'm gonna have to cut it short for this video. At least I've got a few driving clips in it, but it's not finished yet. If you've enjoyed the video, please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.